Welcome to Schuey's Barbecue, where you'll learn the tips and tricks to master your grill. Today, I'm going to be roasting the perfect crispy pork belly. Now, if you do like this video, don't forget, give it the thumbs up, share it with your mates. But the best thing you can do for yourself is hit that subscribe and the bell button. And that way, you'll be notified every time I upload a new video. So, let's get into it. That's right, perfect crispy pork belly. Now to do this, we need to think ahead of schedule. It is the preparation that's going to make or break us. Obviously, we need to start off with some pork belly. I highly recommend going to your butcher and telling them that you need a piece of pork belly ahead of time. And that way, they'll give you a piece of pork belly that hasn't been vacuum sealed and it hasn't had all the juices and all that moisture getting soaked into the skin. Fear not though, if you're unable to get to your butcher in time, I'm actually going to show you my method of creating perfect crispy pork crackling every time. I'm going to back it that much that I'm actually going to use a piece of supermarket pork belly that's been vacuum sealed, and I don't know how long it's been in there. So firstly, we just need to get the pork belly out of the plastic wrapping. Now, using paper towel, get rid of as much moisture off the skin as we can. Now hit this with a jacquard or a fork, or a handful of skewers will even do the trick. This isn't meant to fully pierce the skin right through, it just creates small holes for rendered fat to escape during the cooking process. Now, salt the skin. This is going to help draw out extra moisture, and we need dry skin to create crackle. Next, just put it into the fridge uncovered overnight. I like to leave it for 24 hours. This is going to dry the skin out even further. I've been playing around with some rub mixtures lately, and I'm happy to share them with you. So, into a bowl, I'm going to throw some brown sugar, some salt, some paprika, some coarse black pepper, some cumin, some onion powder, some garlic powder, and some cayenne pepper. Mix this up real good and then transfer this to a rub shaker for easy use later on. The pork skin has been drying out in the fridge overnight. Now, the next morning I tend to like to take it out and just do a few more steps to ensure that we're going to end up with dry skin, which in turn is going to give us perfect crackle. So, start by wiping off all of the salt, and that will be wet as it's drawn out moisture from the skin. Next, I usually would place it meat side down on a chopping board, and using a sharp knife, I'd cut lines into the skin. These do not need to be deep, just enough to break the skin is fine. This pork belly has already got some cuts in it, so I'll just neaten these up a bit and make one long one right down the centre. These are going to do two things: help more moisture escape out of the skin and act as a cutting guide once our pork belly is cooked. Now flip it over onto a wire tray and make some cuts into the flesh about 25mm apart and in a crisscross pattern. We are just creating more surface area to apply our rub. So, using the rub we made, give the skin a liberal coating. Don't worry, the pork can handle it. Make sure all of the flesh is covered. Flip it over, wipe down the skin again to remove any moisture. Now prop up the corners or the edges that droop downwards where the salt can fall off, and now heavily re-salt the skin and back into the fridge until later today when we are ready to cook it. I'll be setting up a Weber kettle for roasting temps over 230 degrees Celsius today. We need a high indirect heat to create pork crackle. Now how I'll do this is I'll fill a chimney starter full of lump charcoal and I'll light it up. Once it's all ashed over, I'll dump this into 2 charcoal baskets and position them on either side of the charcoal grate. Making sure all vents are wide open, I'll place an empty tray in between the charcoal baskets and place the grill back in and put the lid on and allow the Weber to warm up for 10 minutes. While the Weber is warming up, we need to grab the pork belly out of the fridge. Now, we're just going to prep it one last time. So what we're going to do, wipe off the salt, we're going to give it a very light coating of oil. And I cannot stress light enough. Oil in no way is going to help us create crackle. It's purely there so we can stick some salt to that skin to give us a nice savoury flavour once it's finished cooking. So what we need to do, wipe off all the salt off the skin, pat it dry with some paper towel, and using a fresh piece of paper towel with a little bit of oil on it, wipe on a very thin layer of oil. Now sprinkle with salt flakes. Next up, grab a baking pan, place the pork belly into it and add some warm chicken stock, making sure not to get any on the skin. This will stop the flesh drying out. It'll also add some flavour, and by adding warm stock, we won't be lowering the heat in the Weber. Put this into the Weber between the charcoal baskets on the cooking grate and don't touch it for 45 minutes. If you need to, peek through the vent hole to check on the progress of the crackle, but don't lift that lid. I'm roasting at a high indirect heat in the Weber kettle today. Now, the crackle needs concentrated high heat for the first part of the cook, for about 45 minutes for that crackle to form. And then once it's formed, we can drop the heat and cook it for maybe another 15 to 30 minutes until the internal temp reaches 74 degrees. Or for those of you who like to use my beer timer, you're looking at about a 3 beer cook. Cheers. Our crackle is now formed and we don't want it burning while we cook the rest of the meat and get it to the internal temp we want. So we need to drop the temperature and we need to do it quickly. And how are we going to do that? We can adjust the vents, but the temp's going to take quite some time to adjust. So remember at the start of the cook when I said put in warm chicken stock, because that way we won't lower the temp. What do you think is going to happen if we now add some cool liquid? That's right, we'll get more drunk. I mean, we'll lower the temps of the Weber. So remove the pork belly and the cooking grate and now fill the empty pan we put in at the start with cold water. I'm not worried about it creating steam and ruining our skin. It won't have time to get the water hot enough. We just want to lower the temp to around about 180 degrees Celsius for the rest of the cook. Now put the grate and the pork belly back in and keep cooking until we reach an internal temp of 74 degrees Celsius. The pork has finally reached that 74 degrees Celsius internal temp that we've been chasing, so we can get it off the heat and onto a chopping board. Now, because we put those slits in at the start to help us when we cut the crackle, we don't have to turn it over like most people on a chopping board to cut it up and then have the crackle in all the juices, ruining what we've just spent a couple of hours trying to produce, or effectively 24 hours because we've been drying it in a fridge. So what we need to do is grab an impressive looking awesome cleaver and start chopping away. No, wait, we need to let it rest for 5 to 10 minutes before cutting. Stuff this, let's cut into it. Oh, wow. Now I don't know about you, but if this was served up to me and you said it was a vacuum sealed supermarket pork, I'd not believe you. Well, unless you said you watch this guy Schuey do it on YouTube. It looks great, but what about the taste? Get out of here. Seriously, this must be illegal. It's that good. The way to getting perfect pork crackle every time is 1. Drying it out in the fridge for 24 hours before you cook it. 2. Cooking with a high indirect heat over 230 degrees Celsius. 3. Lowering the temp once the crackle is achieved to stop any burning. Do these 3 things and you'll be assured the perfect crackle on your pork belly or roast pork every time. Thanks for watching. If you like free stuff, check out my Instagram for free giveaways and extra content. Cheers. All those birds are back. We're not doing pork belly today. I'm going to roast a bloody cocky. We need to think ahead. Crispy magpie in a minute. That's right, crispy pork belly. It is the preparation that's going to, oh, I'm gonna kill that magpie. Now to do, cha 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 cha, started to cook, and I said, and oh, I'm gonna shoot a bird and I'm gonna cook the bird instead today. I think lawnmower guys started recruiting to his gang because I can hear one that side and one that side.